Hello again, I am Blunty. Now, because I do so much camera related stuff on my YouTube channel thingy here, I get asked all the time, and I mean every single day. I can't get a day without having this question. What camera should I get? What camera do you recommend? The fact of the matter is I don't normally answer the question because there are too many variables. I can't possibly know what's going to be the best camera for you. I could make a horrible recommendation of a very good camera that's entirely wrong for you. It all depends on what you're doing with it and what your budget is and what your skill level is, and just there are countless variables that I can't possibly know. And you know, I'm not insensitive to the question. I know there are a lot of cameras out there, and a lot of them are really, really good, and a lot of really, really crap stuff out there, and it can be completely overwhelming and very, very difficult to make a choice in a very crowded market and a very competitive market. And there are different types of cameras and different systems, and some have interchangeable lenses, and there are different systems within an interchangeable. What's going to be best? I know how confusing it can be, and that's part of the reason why I can't really answer the question for you. Frankly, I've got better things to do with my day than read through paragraph after paragraph of chitter about some stranger about what they want in a camera for me to then play, you know, long-distance salesman to them. It's not worth my time, it's not worth your time, and it's just a bad way to go about things. I prefer to encourage people to use their own brain and make their own purchasing decisions about how to spend their own money, and that's why I do these kinds of reviews. I try and look as objectively as I can at a piece of equipment and tell you the good things and the bad things and what I enjoy about it, what I don't enjoy about it. You can then take that on board with all the other bits and pieces of advice you get from other camera reviews of mine or any other person's, and then calculate, do your own math, and you go, you know what, I like doing this and this and this, my budget is this and this and this, and my preference for size versus performance is this, I'll pick that one. But if I were prepared to fiddle away hours upon hours of my life making purchasing decisions for strangers, you can bet your bottom dollar that this new little beastie would be at the top of the list of my most frequently recommended cameras. Let me tell you why. It's called the OM-D E-M5, and it is the first flagship of a new series of powerful new Micro Four Thirds format cameras from Olympus. It takes its styling cues from the old OM series of SLR film cameras from days gone by, but it's not a slave to those retro looks for retro looks' sake. Make no mistake about this, it may remind you of vintage gear, but it's thoroughly modern exactly where it counts. It's fully weather sealed, and so is the new 12 to 50mm kit lens, and the instant you pick it up you get a real sense that it's built properly tough, and indeed the cosmetic damage on my review unit is evidence that the previous reviewer to myself dropped it on a very hard surface at least once, and the thing still hums along perfectly. You get a handy dandy tilty screen, which I love. The display is crisp and clear and quite viewable even in the sun, and wonderfully it also has a built-in EVF, which has a rapid 120Hz refresh rate, so everything there is clean and sharp too. None of the motion smearing that too many other EVFs suffer from, and it's an absolute pleasure to use. It's got a sensor to auto-switch to the EVF when you put your eye up to it, and it was well behaved, switching reliably every time, though I wish it was just a little bit faster about it. But if you prefer to use the EVF full-time or manually switch between them, or just have the main screen off so it doesn't gobble up battery power, the OM-D can accommodate you via the little button at the side of the EVF mount. The controls on the back are all familiar and well placed, except for the function 1 and playback buttons, which I found a little small and awkward, but to be fair, I don't use them that often, so it's not a really big deal. Up top, you've got your standard mode dial, another configurable function button, and a dedicated video record button, which will start recording from any mode, not just the movie-specific dials section. And 2 settings dials, which are fantastic. They've got a great solid feel, great tactility to them, and they're configurable to your own liking, even down to which direction you prefer them to operate in. They make working in manual mode an absolute joy and very quick indeed, and I especially liked using aperture priority mode, where I had the rear one set for aperture adjustment and the front one set to rapidly dial in exposure compensation. The menu system is clean and sensible enough, and while I don't have nearly enough time to run through it all, trust me when I say that it offers up an unbelievable amount of control. Everything you could want, I think, even down to customizing at precisely what level you'd like your histogram, over and underexposure warnings to be set at. Almost all of the example videos and stills I'll be showing you in just a moment will be from the new 12 to 50mm kit lens, and it's one of the best kit lenses I've come across to date, although handling and feel take a day or two to adjust to. It has 3 modes selectable from its zoom ring. The first is a standard manual zoom, familiar enough. It has a slightly unusual tactile feel to it. It's kind of hard to describe, but it works very well, and that's all that matters. Click the ring forward and it becomes an electronic zoom designed for smooth and silent operation in video mode. Hold down the macro button and click it forward once more, and the lens locks into a 43mm focal length and gives you a surprisingly excellent macro mode. If you buy this camera, I highly recommend you select the kit with this new kit lens, because between the extremely useful focal length range, its macro mode, and its weather sealing to match the OM-D's body, it's a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. The body does tend to emit a constant odd little whirring noise in every mode except video mode, which in a very quiet room is noticeable and a bit annoying, but in normal shooting conditions I never actually noticed it, and it's mysteriously and completely silenced in video mode where it'd be a real problem anyway, so it's not really an issue in any practical sense, but some users are a bit annoyed by it. So that's the hardware basics. Time to look at the end results. Right off the bat, I was impressed with the big leap forward in dynamic range. The new 16 megapixel sensor Olympus selected is significantly better than what I've been getting on my Olympus EP3, which is also a nice camera, but the dynamic range of the OM-D farts in its general direction with a smug look on its face. It's easily a match or better than my Canon 60D DSLR. And it's very sharp too. And while Olympus's own in-camera JPEG processing has always been slightly aggressive about sharpening, this time around it's clear that it's been less needed in the OM-D, as again its new sensor and the new kit lens both perform very well on their own in this regard. Some of the stills I'm showing you have been edited in aperture, but the video is right out of the camera, and as you can see you still get that very nice punchy colour palette and rich contrast that Olympus shooters love so much. There is a little noise in the shadows in some conditions, but it's manageable, and you'll get all the way past ISO 1600 before anyone but the most anal of pixel peepers will see it, and if you need to you can sail all the way up to 25,600 ISO, and on the way there you'll get reasonable results, but you may have to think twice if you're making big prints from them. Olympus's in-camera effects, what they call art modes, are present of course, and as usual they're sometimes quirky, sometimes practically useless, sometimes fun, and sometimes interesting. There's only a couple I'd really consider actually using in any practical sense, but they're there for those who like to experiment with them anyway. They'll work if you trigger video recording too, but due to the extra processing grunt required for many of them, it will make your frame rate chug, which may in itself be an effect you're after. But not me. Another nifty trick the OM-D has is the ability to adjust the tone curve live in camera to let you take even more control over the highlights and shadows, and for some creative control at the extremes, that means you can give the same scene two completely different treatments. You can either punch it right up or pacify it nice and gentle. But of all the bells and whistles the EM5 can proudly yodel about, the brand new 5-axis image stabilisation is easily the most impressive. And I mean it's wildly impressive. I was shooting in the dark with shutter speeds that should have spat out blurry, jiggly mess, but instead I got sharp and clean images. I even handheld this shot, and yes, it's a bit soft, but it's a 6-second exposure. 6 freaking seconds! Handheld! Standing on rocks, for crying out loud, and I still got this shot. It's astounding. And best of all, it works in video mode even better. In fact, Olympus designed a video-specific mode for the image stabilization to work in, and it's glorious. Those who've seen my OM-D versus Nikon D800 video shootout comparison vid already got a taste of this, but even that stuff was shot from a monopod. But the OM-D lets me get handheld shots that look like they were shot from a Steadicam rig, even when I tried to do the ridiculous, like shoot one-handed, while walking, while shooting with a 75mm lens, which gives an equivalent focal length field of view of 150mm in full frame terms. It's insanity to even try this, but the OM-D took the unusable and made it usable. Just to impress upon you the insanity of this, here's a side-by-side. Same lens, same setting, same everything, except one shot I had the stabilization turned off. Impressed yet? Because you bloody well should be. It's amazing. And speaking of long exposure shots, another very clever trick that the OM-D E-M5 can do is called live time and live bulb modes. Basically, they let you watch long exposure shots develop as you go, so you can stop them at exactly the point you need to stop them at. It makes the process of doing long exposure shots a lot faster with a lot less experimentation and playtime. You can just get the result you're after very quickly and very easily, which is superb if you're doing late night sort of long exposure shots in the dark, or if you're doing it in the day with a neutral density filter, so you get that sort of lovely flowing glassy smoky kind of water look, or if you're shooting with a pinhole lens or whatever you're doing. It just makes everything about that long exposure process much easier. It's very clever. The only thing that really bummed me out about video mode was Olympus's continued limitation on video frame rates. It's got 30p, which is fine and is quite useful, and I use it all the time on my EP3, but I know many people out there, including myself sometimes, would like to have 24p in the mix too, or even 50p. But on a brighter note, Olympus have moved away from storing video in an AVC HD file structure, instead dropping .mov files directly onto your memory card in the main DCIM folder. That's a lot of acronyms there, but basically what it means is it has one significant benefit for me and people like me, and that is you can now connect your camera or SD card to your iPad via the camera connection kit and ingest OMD's sweet video directly and use it in iMovie immediately without any other fussing around, conversion or transcoding or anything. It just works. And if you check the video description, or if you have video annotations turned on, you can see a link and watch a present little vignette movie I made with the OMD and my iPad without ever touching a regular computer, or even going home for that matter. If you do on-the-go travel vlogs or any other kind of video stuff on the road, this combination of the OMD and iPad may just be the absolute ultimate portable setup. Everything else was pleasing too. Autofocus was rapid and accurate, the shutter has a very pleasant sound and is quiet and unintrusive. Battery life was good, even when shooting video, but that said, I still think I'd get the optional battery grip. It never hurts to have even more power, and the additional grip makes the camera even more comfortable to hold if you've got big mitts like mine. Across the board, the performance of this little beast is easily equal to many much bigger and much more expensive DSLR brutes out there, and in some cases it simply kicks their teeth in and wanders away. And it's precisely that kind of ferocious performance that I've seen from the OM-D E-M5 combined with the other benefits of the Micro Four Thirds system that I like so much, like a really good lens selection, the size, really practical size and weight differences. I mean, you can carry a camera body and like 5 or 6 different lenses in the space and then less weight than it takes you to carry a full frame DSLR and maybe 2 lenses. It's more practical for me to invest in this system. That's exactly what I have. Oh, and one other thing that I forgot to mention at the beginning when I was going through the hardware that's just occurred to me now as I'm doing this, and that is the door for the memory card is on the side of the camera, unlike Olympus's other pen cameras, which is on the bottom near the battery compartment, or in the battery compartment, which means if you've got it on a tripod, you have to take it off the tripod plate and then open the thing and then change the thing and then put it back on the tripod. It's a horrible, just annoying tiny little bit of usability, and just having the memory card door on the side there makes life so much simpler, because if you've got to mount it on the tripod, you just switch it out. It's a small thing, but it makes a big difference to me. It's an absolute pleasure to use, and the end results are highly pleasing, absolutely worth a long, serious look for the enthusiast photographer. And if you have a poke around on the interwebnets, you'll even find more than a few professional photographers having a good old rave about this thing. It really is a very impressive piece of equipment. It's full of wonderful, joyous things, and I like it a lot. So thanks for watching. I am Blunty, and I will catch you next time.